everybody. Welcome. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records. And today on Dat Fury Radio, Royce Diamond has Star Wars opinions. What's up, Royce?
What's going on?
So I know for a fact I have copied over from the Long Play podcast show idea Google Doc. Royce has Star Wars opinions. That has been an item in the outline since, I don't know, midway through the Long Play show.
Okay.
So it's been on there for a while, and actually, so since we put that on there, a lot of Star Wars has come out, and I think even probably since we put that on there, I've watched some Star Wars that you said I should watch and enjoyed it. So what we're aiming to do tonight is get some of your Star Wars opinions out there. I know we don't have time for all of them. Maybe cover some of the more recent shows. There may be some spoilers. We'll try to flag those for anybody who's concerned about that. And I will bring it back to music at the end, but this is mainly going to be Royce's Star Wars podcast. So let me get you started. I know you're a Bad Batch fan, and you recently rewatched Bad Batch, right? What do you love about Bad Batch?
So I had 2 days where I just sat and watched every episode back to back to back to back to back. So it's 3 seasons, and it's an emotional journey. But what I realized was that they never had a successful mission until the very last one for like 3 seasons. Like in your mind, this whole time they're this badass. I mean, they are a badass group of people, but they're becoming more and more skilled as they go on. But they never, ever, ever, ever succeed until it actually matters. You know what I mean? And then they pull that one off. So that's a great. I mean, that's for me. I mean, I'll be 50 next year, so just thinking about life is a little bit different, and it doesn't matter how many battles you fail, as long as you win the one, right? Like, and
that's actually a very kind of realistic structure, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really cool to see it. I hadn't thought about it in that way when I watched them, because I mean, when they first came out, man. I was headed to the studio. We had some work and stuff going on, and for whatever reason, I put that first episode. It was a Tuesday, and they came out on Tuesdays. So I put that first episode on, and it was just like, I was like, no, this is what I'm doing for the next 45 minutes, and I watched the entire thing. The art is beautiful. The way they kind of mix and blend like comic book with very surreal, kind of Pixar, but not so like clean edges, you know what I mean? Animated characters and blend the stories. Like, it's just, you can just get lost in it, man. You can literally get lost in it, and it's current and relevant to what you're going through in this moment. You can actually see all of the different I don't know, like layers of life, you know what I mean? Or like places in life or states in life. They touch it all. And in a very creative way with great dialogue. So yeah, Bad Batch, if you haven't watched it, that is a great watch. You can watch it all on its own and it's good. But if you know any of the Star Wars stories, it just makes them better. Because you understand, like, kind of like the military journey is what that kind of teaches, like, and all these different people and all the different perspectives on it. You know what I mean? You get to see those characters and get in touch with them for those of us who've never served. You know what I'm saying? So I like it.
And that kind of goes like you really connect with the universe as a whole and the ways that different stories and different characters evolve and change within this universe. But kind of the whole structure of it is something you really connect with, right? We've talked a lot about this.
Yeah, yeah. Man, like to be able to tell a story over 49 years, like it's incredible. And you get so many characters that are introduced. You might get a glimpse of them here and there in different spaces. And what I like with the new, not new, but with Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy have done with Star Wars is you get like this very, like everyone's kind of living these stories. Like we're already kind of living these stories and they're not really commenting on them. They're just telling them, you know, in like real true ways with characters you can relate to from a day-to-day perspective, and then just really fucking well. Like everything about it is just done excellent. The dialogue's done well. The way the scores are presented, the way the sound effects are presented, the transitions from every scene, like everything is like really, really thought about, and just a way that almost kind of captures the essence of life. You know what I mean? Like you're walking through your life scenes and you're not really thinking about them in the moment as some larger narrative, but everything matters. You know? Anyway, I could do that for days. I don't know if any of that makes any sense, but
do you want to go down the Maul path, or do you want to go down the Clone Wars path right now? We can come back to the other one.
Yeah, we can come back to Clone Wars. Maul, man, they took a character who in the movies for sure was very like throwaway. Like you see him a couple times and then he gets killed. And they tell his story in a way where you can kind of relate to this character who you've always kind of thought of as a villain. You know what I mean? In a very believable way that makes what they've put on screen matter, where it probably didn't in the past before. And then like, it seems like they learned from the Acolyte how to film kind of like the lightsaber duels. Like that's always kind of felt a little cheesy, but they really made it work and like slowed down the moments of what a duel would feel like and delivered on it in Maul. And that first time I ever saw them do that was in the Acolyte when they did that in live action. And those are like, in my opinion, some of the best lightsaber duels ever in Star Wars were in that. I think it's only like 8, maybe 6 episodes or something like that.
Yeah, one season. Yeah.
Yeah. It was good. I mean, there's some things that I could complain about, but it was good. And maybe the storyline could have been better. But I felt like most of these stories, when you get the first season, you know, it's like watching Star Trek. You kind of have to let go and imagine a little bit. Like you got to do a little bit of the work, and then they kind of pick it up later in the seasons or something like that. And then they canceled it. So that was a disappointment.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it the other night when we were talking. Royce and I had a nice conversation a week or two ago, just on the phone. But Maul really, I mean, he obviously like looms large in episode 1 with a very limited amount of screen time, right? But like you feel his presence and you know he's important and everything. And then, you know, through the Clone Wars and now through the Maul show, like they really did take this very mysterious, limited screen time kind of one-dimensional character, and his story has become just like operatic in terms of the highs and the lows and the tragedies and the complexity, and like he's gone from one extreme to the other in terms of the depth that the character has been given.
His his dialogue very specifically, and Maul, like every line is really, really thought about and delivered really, really well. And his dialogue is really telling the story, right? So he has, well, here's a spoiler if someone's not seen it, but he has a portion, and I'm not even going to tell you where it is, where he feels defeated, okay? And as he's feeling defeated, he starts to journey through his struggles, like from when he was a child, the things that he lost, everything that he went through, then being taken on by a master who deliberately like throws him away, and how all of that made him more powerful. And what he's actually doing, if you know any of the lore, is he's verbally going through the Sith code, right? And that's how they kind of think about it. It's like they're everything that made them weak makes them stronger because they survived it, you know? So that's what he's kind of doing as he's transitioning through this. But he's also gotten to a point in his life where he's not like just evil for no reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
He actually has a purpose. It's a redeemer story, you know? Here's a guy who was lost as a child, you know, and he's telling everybody, man, I didn't know what I was doing was evil, right? But I lived it, and I'm that person, and I'm capable of those things, but that's not who I am anymore. But you can't see me for who I am because you're stuck on my past. That's kind of his story so far, which is beautiful. That's a great story for a character who had like 3 scenes in a movie.
Right. It's amazing that the universe has expanded so much to make that possible for a character like that.
He had there was an audiobook or a book a few years back that kind of takes you through some of the struggles and stuff that Palpatine put him through. And his commitment to Palpatine and why he would be so angry that he just got discarded. All right. I will tell you that you learn in this first season of Maul, you can see why Palpatine threw Maul away. It's more obvious than they've ever made it in any other things on screen or in books. And it's not a fault of Maul's at all, but we can talk about it later.
We've never talked about this. What was your introduction to the universe? Do you remember what's your first memory of Star Wars as a kid?
Man, I don't know what order I saw the movies in or when I just became a fan. It was just like I watched it and it was just like a part of me at that point. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I had a strong emotional connection to the first 3 movies as a child. But when they did the Clone Wars and you really kind of go through what it was like for them to be fighting those wars. And it was weird because it's like a little kid show, kind of like animation stuff, but you watch it kind of grow up as the kids kind of grow up, you know? Even that kind of blew me away. And they were able to really tell the story and make the other stories make sense, right? That's why I think they can go and do something like an Andor and a Rogue One, and it totally makes, Star Wars, the original movie, feel like, oh, okay, now this all makes sense to me, because you kind of get dropped in the middle of a story, which is cool. And I think they do that really well in Clone Wars too. Like they always start the episode off like they're in some kind of crises, and then you have to kind of figure out what was going on. So it's just done really well.
Yeah, and we're mainly talking about Clone Wars, the second computer animated series, right? 4 seasons, and not the earlier Samurai Jack, like cartoon Powerpuff Girl style.
The vintage stuff, yeah. So you're talking about the Samurai Jack stuff was the Star Wars Clone Wars vintage, which I guess was kind of like the pilot for Clone Wars. And then there are 6 seasons of Clone Wars, I think. 6 or 7. Because I think they did 5 before Disney picked them up. And then they did, I have that, I'm not sure exactly how that happens, but they came back and did the last season of Clone Wars later. So they stopped it, there was a break, and then they did that whole last season, which is a great season.
It is kind of the foundation of
just everything.
All of the Disney era stuff.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the trilogy of, episodes 7, 8, 9.
And it's before Disney. So they weren't even with Disney. Yeah. But yeah, because Rebels, I think, was the first Disney thing, which if you visually watch it is difficult to watch. But if you actually watch it, it's a really good story. That makes sense because it was done almost like in a child's animation kind of thing in the first probably like 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. And then after that, it kind of picks up and becomes a little more dramatic. Still feels very much like a kid's show. So most Star Wars people just don't watch it.
So my introduction, I have a very clear memory of in A New Hope, the X-Wings gathering to do the assault on the Death Star and seeing the engines from behind, right? That shot of Luke's squadron getting ready to do the trench run and the Death Star in the background. And I was at my grandma's apartment and it was on TV, just like with commercials and everything, right? Like it wasn't a tape or anything. It was on TV that night and the TV was on. And that is my earliest memory of Star Wars. I might have been as young as like 6 or 7. I was pretty young.
Okay.
So I was a huge fan of the trilogy, which was all there was at that point, right? And some books. And I would read the books, the expanded universe books, in the summer when I didn't have homework and stuff. And some of my friends, when episode 1 was coming out, I had a couple of friends who did the camp out. That was a thing. People camping out to get tickets, right? They camped out for, as I remember, 3 nights on the sidewalk to buy tickets. I didn't spend any nights on the sidewalk. I visited them and maybe brought snacks and stuff, and they bought me a ticket, but I'm not claiming, there's no stolen valor here. I didn't spend any nights on the sidewalk for episode 1. So I was tremendously excited and, enjoyed it on the first viewing, but it didn't wear as well with me as the original trilogy, right? And so my interest kind of started dropping through episodes 2 and 3, and I don't know. I probably like something like Andor or Rogue One would have gotten my attention enough to revisit without your influence, but it was only because of your influence that like I watched the Clone Wars and have watched some of the other more recent stuff. And I'm excited. I'm behind. I haven't seen The Acolyte. I haven't seen Andor Season 2 or anything newer than that. But I am excited to catch up, and you've really expanded my mind as far as what the whole universe can be to me as an adult,
I got you. I kind of think about the movies in like in a different kind of separate way. Because I feel like the movies are what they have to do to keep the lights on. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? And I respect them for that. And they always bring something technologically to it. They always bring something to it. But if you're, I obviously I like the first three movies. That was, groundbreaking in its day. The stories I think are still good, but it is tough cinema to like kind of go back and watch sometimes. You know, I think the what was it the Last Jedi, I think is what it was, the with Rey. Though I think those first two movies were good. I think the first one was better than the second one. I would watch those before I'd probably go back and watch any of the other six. Um, I was disappointed that like the whole Solo thing didn't continue. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what happened there. Maybe that's with Kathleen Kennedy leaving. We probably won't see anything like that because I think she's
Yeah,
good.
I actually thought Solo was kind of fun, and I mean KT-88 was amazing, and yeah, I would say I like Solo more than my general impression of the fandom.
Well, what I like about those is those are like real stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Andor kind of is. Like, there's not a lightsaber, there's not any of that kind of stuff going on. It's just humans interacting with, or species interacting with other species. And they do it in a way that's believable. That I feel like just wasn't in some of the previous movies. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to really stretch to see Jabba the Hutt as a character. Um, anyway, yeah. So I like a lot of that universe. I think Obi-Wan was pretty good. I don't know what else I could expect out of that story. But there's a season two, or people talk about a season two. It hasn't actually been said that that's going to happen. I think you
Oh,
and
I
I
hadn't heard
was
about
talking
that.
about it.
I'm not that tuned in, but I hadn't heard about that. I'd be kind of surprised about that.
I would be really
Dude, I
surprised
missed an
too.
opportunity to open the podcast with "Hello there."
There you go. You just got it. um, yeah, man. There's a lot. I feel fortunate. There's a lot of good Star Wars stuff.
A lot of
Um,
content.
yeah, man. And that takes time, right? So it's difficult for other people to tell those kinds of stories. I think even in the comic book world, it's different because they like reset a. I'm not a huge comic book person, but it's like they'll reset a universe, and then you have to kind of like reimagine and rethink everything. Whereas I really like these stories, and I will tell you, I'm hoping in episode or not episode season 2 of Ahsoka that somehow we get Ventress. I don't know if you remember who Ventress is. She's
I
Dooku.
do.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a huge miss if we don't get Ventress. I think you could get the I'm trying to think of what their name, the sisters that in season 6 episode
Uh,
Ahsoka
S-
gets
Sisters of the Night.
no the
Different sisters.
I think that I want to say like the Martinez sisters. They're
Hmm.
basically like one of them's a mechanic and the other one's kind of a criminal, you know. And Ahsoka winds up crashing with them for a period of time.
I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then they become like they eventually go and start working with the rebellion. So I mean that's they've got to be alive in Ahsoka's story. I am interested to see Thrawn.
Yeah. And I remember him from the old expanded universe novels
Huge
and
in
stuff.
Rebels.
Do you want to talk about Ahsoka, the character, quick before I kind of bring it home? Because
Okay.
I know we've talked about Ahsoka over the course of like several different conversations over the years.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything particular?
Well, I just feel like she's another character that means something to you. And I
Yeah.
think and I agree. I mean, I think she's a great character and a really interesting. She's to your kind of overall point about connecting with the more grounded stories in this like very expansive universe. She's kind of the Earth of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
We know Obi-Wan, we know Anakin, they're doing like all this stuff. And of course, she's a Jedi or a Padawan at least, but she kind of at times becomes the point of view character, and it's through her that we see that the Jedi tell a story about themselves that doesn't always line up with reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's through Ahsoka that I think we as the audience really start to see that, and that really becomes an explicit part of the show in a way that through the bigger movies is kind of, it's there if you want to see it, but I don't know if it's really text. It's more subtext.
Mm-hmm.
And through Ahsoka, it really becomes something closer to text in the Clone Wars.
Yeah. And I think in Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire, they continue that very specifically. They continue that story with all the characters that Ahsoka interacts with. So you get Morgan Elsbeth, who in Ahsoka is working with Thrawn, but you don't know why without Tales of the Empire. You get Barriss, who was the young lady who was a Jedi, started seeing that the Jedi Order was becoming wicked and corrupted. And then she tries to bomb the temple. And Ahsoka's the one that winds up catching her. She gets put into prison, and you don't ever hear about her again until Tales of the Empire. So you get that in there. And she becomes a part of what becomes the Inquisitors. So the Inquisitors are Darth Vader at this point trains this group of people to go out and hunt Jedis and kill all the Jedis. And Barriss becomes one of these Inquisitors. And her relationship with Ahsoka kind of helps create what that character becomes, So like, yeah, Ahsoka's tied to everything. But then on top of that, like you take like, she fought with Darth Vader or Anakin, who was becoming Darth Vader, and held her own. She fought with Darth Maul, captured him. You know what I'm saying? Like every villain outside of Palpatine, she was able to hold her own with, and she's a Padawan, and like a young Padawan. Like she's in her teenage years, maybe 20 when she leaves the Jedi Order, and she only leaves them because they turn her back on her in the whole bear situation. So yeah, and then she goes into the underworld and makes allies with Ventress, who used to be Dooku's Padawan, right? So they're both kind of like, well, we were Padawans, got cast out. Like she's just so through the story. I don't know what they're going to do in season 2. I'm very excited to see it though, for sure.
Yeah, she really bridges all those levels, right? From, having relationships with our sort of big protagonists, whether it's Obi-Wan, Anakin, and so on, fighting with our big antagonists, but then also having those much more down-to-earth relationships and going to different planets and
meeting different people. You see,
and regular people, right? Like not everyone she interacts with is a Jedi or a Sith. She has relationships with regular citizens of the galaxy and kind of meets them where they are, and she's very open and accessible in that way. and becomes that bridge between the levels.
And two things. So after Order 66, you don't see it on screen anywhere, but it's in books. She's got a book. She goes into hiding. She doesn't really know about everything that happened with Order 66 because she had already left, right? But she does know that there are people out hunting and trying to kill Jedi. So she winds up bouncing from planet to planet, almost becoming like a, what are they called? The bounty hunters, right? Like she goes to a place, she tries to, bring some type of resource of value to the community. So maybe they have machines that need to be worked on or whatever, and she'll barter and exchange and do all that stuff for money. But then something, just like the bounty hunters are saying, like something happens, there's some corrupt thing happening, and she still feels the need to like help people out, which is really what gets her kind of like back on the radar of the Empire. She just can't stop helping people out. And then she goes and becomes one of the generals of the Rebel Alliance, right? So like her story is just so intertwined with all of that. But the other thing I was going to say is, so she fought all those people, survived. And then when she was with, it was Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano, and they're on a mission. They wound up getting lost in some portion of the universe that they didn't know what it was, and they wake up and they're on this planet with these Mortis gods, and the Mortis gods are the Father, the Son, and the Daughter, and the Son's the spirit of evil, and the Daughter's the spirit of light. And there's a whole story, but in that story, Ahsoka actually gets killed, okay? And the Mortis sister, who's a god, trades her life for Ahsoka and brings Ahsoka back to life. But after that event, you notice everywhere Ahsoka goes, there's the Morai, which is this little owl-looking creature that kind of follows her around, which is like the sister's spirit, who's a god. So, I mean, somehow, and she gets in Rebels, she winds up being in the world between worlds. So she's got something different than all of the other Jedi out there if they get to tell that story. Like, no one else has done all that stuff or experienced all that stuff. So, yeah, Ahsoka's that's my road dog.
Nice.
That's my stepdaughter. I call her Ahsoka.
Well, I know that's not all of your Star Wars opinions, but is there anything major that we missed before I kind of bring this home?
No, I think we're good. Watch Maul. You got to watch Maul.
Highly recommending Maul. So here's how I want to wrap this back into Dat Fury. I mean, obviously, John Williams scores for the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, and I don't even know about the sequel trilogy off the top of my head, but John Williams scores, mind-blowing, iconic. I mean, I can listen to the soundtrack or the score for A New Hope, Empire, Jedi, and Episode 1, and like the movie will play in my head. I just know the movies and the scores that deeply from watching them so many times. And obviously, like, John Williams himself does not do all the music for all the Disney shows and all the stuff. They do, bring in threads and phrases and themes, that connect to the wider universe, just like the story. But there's other composers working on these shows. And I just wanted to ask, like, how do you find the music of these newer shows and its relationship to the music that John Williams put to the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy?
Well, first, before I answer that, if you ever get the chance to go and see a Star Wars film at the Kaufman, you should do that. Okay, that is worth the money. I never cared about Darth Vader dying like I did when I went and saw that movie there. Okay, but I love that. I love that they keep kind of, I hate to say tropes, just because that always has like a negative connotation, but they kind of keep that love for the way that original music was written, and they incorporate it into these worlds, whether they do it in electronic form or whatever. Like they kind of keep that essence, and that to me helps tie the whole spirit of what, when they're talking about the Force, right? Like every character kind of has like their own little vibration that they make with them. You know what I mean? And they tell that through all the different mediums. And that's the other thing that I think is beautiful. It was weird at first when you started watching Star Wars through all these different mediums, but it works because there are certain things, certain ways that you can tell certain stories about, like what you were talking about vintage earlier. So you don't ever see how powerful Mace Windu is, except for in vintage, right? Like, which most people have never even heard of, let alone seen.
Right. We're talking about the vintage Clone Wars, like Samurai Jack style.
Exactly. Yeah. And they lean into the strengths and the weaknesses of all of those. And I think Maul is a really good representation of what they've learned along the way. And they're able to like tell all the unique aspects of the story through those different mediums simultaneously, which is incredible, right? Like it's incredible. If you have issues with, staying focused and on one task, you can watch Maul and your brain won't wander. I promise you. They just do a great job. They just do a really, really great job of kind of hitting all your senses at once. Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah, that would be my one thing about the music. I just love how they've kept it true to the essence of what it has always been, without feeling like they couldn't expand and do something different. And they did a really good job of that in Andor as well.
I love that, and I love the thought that a character's musical theme is connected to that character's relationship with the Force. I had never thought about that before, but that's a really great thought. I love it, dude. Don't go anywhere. Listeners, we'll see you next week for One Question with Royce, a musical question on Dat Fury Radio. That was good. How you feeling?
I feel good. I don't know. How do you feel?
I feel good, man. You make it easy.
Okay.
I hold the football, you come kick it.
Perfect. I can do that with Star Wars all night. Okay.